Salute, guys, and welcome to the Mr. Goodbread reaction channel where we learn how not to be a dummy from some well paid dummies. We watch and study the stars, entertainers, and athletes so we know how the broke folks in our community is going to behave. And today we got a pretty interesting one. Stephen A. Smith blast NFL for conspiring against Shedeur Sanders. Now, you know, guys, I preach as a man, we have to quarterback our relationship. You know what I mean? We have to be the quarterback. And the world, society don't want us to be the quarterback, especially when you black. When you black, they don't want you to be the quarterback because you represent a full functioning, intelligent individual. Because quarterback always been the hardest position to play because you got to be smart. You got to be pretty smart to be the leader of a team. And black men have got to the education. Black men have changed the laws of their mind, and black men can do it. And as well as not only can we do it mentally, physically, we too legit to quit. Physically, we is dominant. So let's get on into this and see what Stephen A. Smith got.
Young kid, privileged to be raised by a father who's universally recognized one of the greatest athletes the world has ever seen, and a champion, by the way. He's still black. We don't like his brashness. We don't like his absence of humility.
I believe they all came together in a KK Ku Klux Klan type of clandestine meeting, and they decided, allegedly, I believe, that they were going to embarrass, humiliate, and sabotage both Deion Sanders and his son, Shedeur Sanders, on draft day.
Lord, put me on the cross. Please take my kids off. I got this. I would take it for them. I'm dead serious.
Well, a number of things happened. The number one thing that didn't happen was there was not a collusion message with the NFL owners.
Okay, a lot of people think that.
Stephen A. Smith is once again going off on the NFL and accusing team owners of conspiring to blackball Shedeur Sanders in the 2025 draft. According to Stephen A., Shedeur's shocking slide from a projected top 10 pick to a fifth-round selection wasn't about talent, interviews, or readiness, but a coordinated effort by the NFL's mostly white ownership class to humble Shedeur and his dad Deion Sanders and put them in their place. And he's not the only one buying into the theory. Dr. Umar Johnson went even further, calling it racial discrimination, and even suggesting that Shedeur and Deion should file a lawsuit against the NFL. However, not everyone is lining up behind this collusion narrative. Plenty of critics, including former players, analysts, and even some in the scouting world, are pointing fingers at Shedeur and Deion themselves. They're saying Shedeur bombed interviews, skipped key meetings, and carried himself like the draft was just a formality. And let's not forget Deion's antics, like publicly demanding which teams his son should or shouldn't play for. So who's right? Is this really the NFL circling the wagons to take down Deion and Shedeur? Or is it simply the league saying Shedeur hasn't earned that yet? Was it collusion or just cold, hard business? Let's break it down.
His absence of humility. We got to teach him a lesson because we got to make sure he understands under all circumstances, we still run this. We're the bosses, and we can put our foot on your neck any damn time we want to.
Shedeur Sanders was supposed to be a top 3 pick in the 2025 NFL draft, and everyone was talking first round, big money, face of the franchise type hype. But instead, he fell way down to the 5th round.
And what I don't understand is how Travis Hunter go higher than him when he had to have somebody throw it to him. Travis Hunter is not the quarterback. He had to have somebody throwing him the ball. But it just goes to show you, we could be any position we want. They treat us like how we supposed to treat our females. Remember, I tell you, your lady could be any position she want, but she can't be the quarterback. That's how they treat us. Now, Travis he went at the number he went, and his quarterback, though, 5th round. It makes sense.
144th by the Cleveland Browns. That drop had people shocked, and it kicked off a whole lot of drama and finger pointing. One of the loudest voices calling foul is none other than Stephen A. Smith. He's out here saying it wasn't just bad interviews or ego. He thinks the NFL straight up conspired to humble Shedeur, and it didn't stop there. Stephen also alleged this whole thing was a power move by the league's mostly white owners, like a warning shot to both Shedeur and his dad, Deion Sanders, and a message that they should stay in their place. And let's be real, with Deion being loud, proud, flashy, and calling his own shots like he's the main character, some folks are wondering if the NFL just wanted to put the whole Sanders brand in check.
And because of his swag and his bravado or whatever, y'all gonna turn against him. How about y'all should have drafted Shedeur Sanders earlier because of that alone? I'm not talking about at the expense of his skill. I know he's got to have skill. That's not what I mean. I'm saying rather than look at all of those things as a negative, how about looking at it as a positive? You got a primetime Deion Sanders. His son is gonna be motivated to perform at a higher level. He is all about performing at a higher level. He would be in his son's ear, imploring him to listen to his coaches, imploring him to play better, imploring him to be dedicated and focused and on point. Did you ever think about that? Of course not. Because, ladies and gentlemen, as times change, they remain the same. Young kid, privileged to be raised by a father who's universally recognized as one of the greatest athletes the world has ever seen, and a champion, by the way. He's still black. We don't like his brashness. We don't like his absence of humility. We got to teach him a lesson because we got to make sure he understands under all circumstances, we still run this. We're the bosses, and we can put our foot on your neck any damn time we want to. That's what happened to Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders over the last few days, spanning 5 rounds and 143 picks. That's what happened. It was a check hook. Stay in your lane. Know your position. This is the National Football League. You ain't running a damn thing this way. You will be humble. You will conduct yourself with humility. Nothing is given to you. Everything is earned. And even then, we'll decide whether we want to give it to you or not. That's how they treated Shedeur Sanders.
Stephen A. also said that all this so-called collusion against Shedeur might really be about his dad. Coach Prime has been shaking things up ever since he hit the college football scene. Plus, Deion doesn't play by the old school rules, and not everybody in the sports world likes that. So Stephen A.'s theory is that NFL executives don't need to sit in a secret room to plot. They've got these low-key, unspoken codes. And if someone's seen as too disruptive or not playing the game their way, they'll quietly freeze them out. So letting Shedeur drop wasn't just about him. It was a way to send a message to his dad that all that hype and attention don't mean a thing here.
That kind of energy, that kind of message, that insatiable appetite to send and cement that kind of imprint on this young man has to be, at least to some degree, about his father. And let me tell y'all something about Deion Sanders real quick. He is confident as hell, supremely so. There's very little you could tell him because the brother is smart, he's studied, he's learned, and he's sincere with what comes out of his mouth.
But Stephen A. wasn't done stirring the pot. He later jumped on X and said somebody texted him saying what happened to Shedeur felt like Colin Kaepernick level collusion. And Stephen A. agreed with this theory, writing, "Someone just texted me this message, and they are absolutely correct. This is a bad look for the NFL. This feels like Kaepernick level collusion. All the hard work the NFL league office puts into eradicating these kinds of perceptions, only to turn around and watch as the owners look like they're colluding, messing up everything. What has been done to Shedeur will outshine everything else in this draft. We'll never believe this is about just talent evaluation again." And then Skip Bayless jumped in and co-signed Stephen A.'s whole collusion theory, claiming the NFL was basically trying to put Shedeur and Deion in their place.
Y'all know ESPN own that, so that's why y'all gotta read the caption on this, guys. Hit that like button while you at it, guys. Hit that like button.
Meanwhile, former Congressman Jamal Bowman also backed this narrative and said the NFL is scared of Shedeur Sanders just because he's a confident, powerful young black man who knows his worth. Bowman even dropped a video of himself talking about Shedeur's draft slide. And he wrote in the caption, "The NFL doesn't like Shedeur Sanders because he wears gold chains and talks like a rapper. They don't care that he's a leader, intelligent, tough, and completed 77% of his passes with no O-line and no running game. He's entitled, but Eli Manning wasn't entitled when he refused to be drafted by San Diego. He's not athletic, but that didn't stop Joe Montana, Drew Brees, or Tom Brady. America continues to fear strong black men who come from means and have a strong sense of themselves without submitting to the dominant culture."
I'll do you one even better. They don't like this man because he's ruled by his father. You see, they like them single mother boys. Let's tell it like it is. They don't like this man because he gonna always have righteous leadership in his father. They can do what they want with them single mother boys that's in survival, that all they want to do is buy their mama a house. So they love them. They love them. But the ones that got a father, a masculine father, man, they don't like them. That's what it is. Let's not skip around that.
Meanwhile, the collusion talk just kept heating up, and even Dr. Umar jumped in and directly called out NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell by name, accusing him of teaming up with the owners to intentionally humiliate Shedeur and Deion.
The Shedeur Sanders scandal, as I'm going to call it. Not a scandal on his part, but a scandal on the racist NFL part, to me is a reminder to every black man in America. No matter how rich, no matter how wealthy, no matter how famous, you are still a ninja in this society. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, I believe, allegedly, was also involved on this scandal to embarrass, humiliate, and sabotage both Deion Sanders and his son Shedeur on draft day. I believe that all 32 NFL team owners and their executives and NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, I believe they all came together in a KK Ku Klux Klan type of clandestine meeting, and they decided, allegedly, I believe, that they were going to embarrass, humiliate, and sabotage both Deion Sanders and his son, Shedeur Sanders, on draft day. This was the NFL plantation slave masters. This was the NFL's plantation slave masters coming together to remind Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, and Black America that you have no say-so here. You have no power here. And if you ever think that you are our equal, we will destroy you. Or by sabotaging Shedeur and pushing him to the 5th round.
But Dr. Umar didn't stop there. He went all in and said Deion and Shedeur should actually sue the NFL for trying to sabotage Shedeur's career and discriminate against him just for being a strong young black man who wouldn't play by their rules.
And I'm hoping that Deion and Shedeur will sue the NFL for racial discrimination and collusion against Shedeur on draft day. This ain't the end of this, Art. They need to sue.
Now, some fans are riding hard for the collusion theory, saying the NFL pretty much exposed themselves by admitting they didn't like Shedeur's attitude, calling him arrogant and entitled. Apparently, Shedeur decided to skip both the Shrine Bowl and the NFL Combine workouts, and he focused on interviews and showing out at his pro day instead. And according to some draft experts, that might have backfired. Former NFL quarterback and sports talk vet Boomer Esiason chimed in on his WFAN show and said a bunch of coaches and GMs around the league think Shedeur comes off off-putting and too into himself. And Boomer added that Deion didn't exactly help the situation either, with always talking big and moving like he was the one making all the calls.
They took him off, and they took him off because the owner said, take him off. I don't want that guy. Shedeur Sanders just torpedoed himself. His attitude off the field at the combine, his dad didn't help him either. You know, he was on podcast talking about, this is my son. If I can get him to where I want to get him to, I'm going to do that. But, you know, when you listen to this kid talk right prior or at the combine about if you want a new culture in your locker room, I'm the guy to do that. I can turn it around. I mean, he's very high on himself. And I think he was very off-putting to many, many coaches and general managers in the league. And I'm telling you right now, and I know this after talking to 3 different personnel people in the NFL this weekend, they didn't even have him on their board. They took him off. And they took him off because the owner said, take him off. I don't want that guy. I don't want this entitled person on our team. And I don't blame him.
By the way, just a few weeks before the draft, an anonymous NFL coach from a team picking in the top 7 said Shedeur came off brash and arrogant during their interview. It was former ESPN reporter and NFL insider Josina Anderson who revealed this on X, and she clapped back, defending Shedeur and saying, I am disappointed to hear that a quarterback's coach from a team drafting in the top 7 referred to Shedeur Sanders as coming off brash and arrogant in his team interview and making his assessment known to a number of people, per source. And then, longtime draft expert Todd McShay came through and backed it up, confirming that 2 different teams told him straight up that Shedeur acted like he didn't really care what they thought during interviews, in a way that wasn't a professional approach. At the same time, other sources pointed to some of Shedeur's media interviews as proof that his attitude rubbed the league the wrong way.
Tell him what does Shedeur Sanders need? What do you hope to get out of the NFL to help you reach your maximum potential as fast as possible?
All I need is opportunity. Simple. Whatever franchise want to change their franchise, and there's no doubt who to go with. I've done it over and over and over, so you'll be a fool not to pick me.
And Lewis mentioned again,
if you ain't trying to change the franchise or the coach, don't give me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over, and I've done it over and over and over, so it should be no question why an NFL franchise should pick me. You think I'm worried about what critics say or what people got to say? You know who my dad is? They hated on him too. So it's like it's almost normal. Without people hating, it's not normal for us. So we like diversity. We like everything that comes with the name. That's why we are who we are. I mean, how many times did Raul get touched? How many times did Raul get touched? There was able, like, of course, whenever you're able to run the ball consistently and whenever you're able to, then that opens up the pass, you know? But it's just like you got to understand, like, what your team good at. So it's like, why would we keep running the ball if, okay, we out there and we get in a situation where it's a must get and we don't get it?
Are those kind of like 4th and 1 conversions that haven't gone your guys' way in the last couple of, is that kind of play into everybody's mind? Is that kind of something on your mind thinking about, advancing the ball and whatnot?
Nah, I'd rather, if we're going to go down, I'd rather go down swinging, honestly.
Meanwhile, a lot of fans and commentators who are backing this collusion theory are pointing out how white quarterbacks with the same level of confidence and even worse attitude get called competitive or leaders. But when black players bring that same energy, they're slammed as arrogant or difficult. One fan wrote, "People acting as if Shedeur Sanders' attitude is what caused him to fall is hilarious. Baker Mayfield was an effing menace in college and went first overall. Hate Shedeur all you want, but he's obviously being blackballed." And someone else added, "They say Shedeur Sanders needs to be humble. No one tells Joe Burrow to be humble. No one tells Aaron Rodgers to be humble. No one told Tom Brady to be humble." However, not everyone is buying into the collusion theory. A lot of people, including some former NFL players, are saying Shedeur's drop in the draft had nothing to do with his confidence or boldness, and it was more about him and Deion acting like they're in charge of the whole league. NFL legend Chris Carter came out and shut down the collusion talk, saying there was no such thing. And he actually called out Deion and Shedeur for making too much noise off the field and pushing too hard.
Well, a number of things happen. The number one thing that didn't happen was there was not a collusion message with the NFL owners.
And then NFL reporter Tom Pelissero also hinted that Deion was partly to blame, saying he was acting like he could control which teams Shedeur ended up with.
Until day 3. I spoke last night with one general manager who is considering taking Shedeur Sanders today. He pointed back all the way to March 2024 and something that Shedeur's father, Deion Sanders, said on a podcast talking about both Shedeur and Travis Hunter, saying that if they are drafted by a team that they don't want to go to, he's going to step in and pull an Eli, meaning force those players to not actually go to that team and try to get them traded. Throughout the pre-draft process, Shedeur Sanders very much proceeded as if he was dictating to clubs where he was going to go rather than how the draft works, which is the other way around. And there were a bunch of opportunities missed at the various checkpoints through that pre-draft process.
And that's a fact. I remember that. I remember Deion saying that he wanted Travis and Shedeur to be drafted together as a package deal. And at some point, you do got to shut up. You do got to shut up. You got to humble yourself and be quiet. I get it because LeVar Ball, the Ball family went through the similar situation with the masculine, male, dominant leader. But at some point, you cut the resource off from your children being so boisterous. You got to fall back and let it and see it through. Let your kid's talent speak for itself. Let his talent speak for itself.
Now, remember when Deion went on the Tamron Hall show back in February and said there were a few NFL teams he would not allow Shedeur to play for? Well, that apparently didn't sit well with some higher-up people in the league.
You have said that if the right team does not pick him, that you will intervene.
That's my son. It's not like who I would like for him to play for. It's a couple teams that I won't allow him to play for. It's almost like you got a child that's going into an occupation that you already dominated in. Like, come on. And you don't think I'm not gonna sit there like a navigational system and tell him, take a right there, take a left right there, take a, not that, not that. Oh, no. Like, that's who I'm called to do. That's my son. I'm not gonna let my son get down in no foolishness.
But you and I both know these coaches, these owners, right? You've been in the rooms.
Right.
The owners, billionaire owners,
yes,
will often say, well, this is a young man who should be making his own decisions. He's got this helicopter dad.
Not my son.
And this is why a lot of fans are now saying the whole collusion story doesn't add up. Instead, they're pointing the finger at Deion's attitude and Shedeur's pre-draft interviews as the real reasons for his slide. One fan on X responded to Stephen A. Smith, saying, Shedeur Sanders refused to work out at the combine, absolutely bombed interviews, told teams not to draft him if they weren't ready to change their franchise and culture. This isn't collusion. Teams just don't want him because he expects to run the organization from day one. And another person added, racism? The first 3 picks were black, 80% of the draft is black. Does anybody get that it literally cannot be racism? The kid does not project to be an elite quarterback, or teams would have taken him earlier. Was Bronny James going 5 picks from last? Racist? Did LeBron complain? No. You get picked where you fit and who actually wants you. And move along. Meanwhile, the NFL insiders have also rejected this collusion theory, including NFL agent Lee Steinberg, who told TMZ Sports that this conspiracy theory that owners blackballed Shedeur is nonsense. Steinberg said that the collusion theory makes no sense because teams want to add to their roster players that give them a chance to win, and that desire to have the best players overruns any other conspiracy theory. Teams would draft a player who's got great talent on the field, Steinberg added. He just didn't find a match in the process. Former ESPN president John Skipper also shut down the collusion talk, and he said the teams just didn't see Shedeur as a first, second, or third round pick. Plus, he added that the coaches probably weren't trying to deal with Deion's energy.
Again, guys, when it goes silent like that, I need y'all to read the caption because ESPN owns the content and I'll get the video shut down. Hit that like button, guys. Take the time to hit the like button.
But then there's a whole group of fans who think the story is really not that deep, and the real truth is probably boring compared to this collusion talk. Basically, the NFL is a business at the end of the day, and if Shedeur was really that good, the teams would have put up with way worse attitudes. We've seen players with bigger egos go in the first round just because their talent was too good to ignore. But some fans think Shedeur simply wasn't good enough as a college quarterback to be acting the way he was. Now his dad Deion had that same cocky attitude back in his draft days, but he was a generational talent, which some fans feel Shedeur just isn't. And when you can't back up the attitude, that's when problems pop up. And that's why some fans totally understand why Shedeur fell. They think his talent doesn't match the entitlement, and he's not worth the drama of having Deion in the media every week, pushing for his son to start over veterans or better players. On top of that, some people are saying the teams that passed on Shedeur probably aren't losing any sleep after seeing him throw that post-draft party with a red carpet and suitcases full of cash. But what's your verdict on this drama? Are you siding with Stephen A. and Dr. Umar, who believe there's a collusion going on against Shedeur and Deion? Or do you think it's really not that deep, and Shedeur just didn't live up to the hype? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't miss this next video.
Man, salute to the Petty Show for that. If you want to watch that video without my commentary, you can go on over to the Petty Show. But guys, I would love to know what's your thoughts. Do you think he's that good? Do you think he's good enough to talk that talk? Or you think he's not that good? I would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section. So let's go to the comment section. Thank you for watching, guys. I see you guys later. Enjoy the rest of your day.